welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. Today I'm going to work on a few of my Brazilian rain trees. This is the Cascade. If you go back and look at the last video that I made on this one, I do keep a playlist for these. If you look at the last video I made with this one, this was the tree that I had secured the best for the hurricane. And then unfortunately, the shelf that I had it secured on, including everything else on it, was just knocked off. And of course this was secured on there, so it stayed nice and tight on there, but it just beat the heck out of it, took all of the substrate out somehow or another after it fell on the ground. The wind blew just directly into the pot, and it basically just bare rooted the entire thing. And the last time I did update it, just gave it a really light prune. After that, it kind of sat and did nothing for a really long time. Started getting some of this growth up here where I really don't want it, and I came really close to just even considering just like cutting it off right about here and just making it, you know, like I could make some kind of a tree out of it. It's got a nice thick trunk now and everything, but I did want to keep it a Cascade as long as possible. I know a lot of people will tell you that Cascades are not for beginners, and at this point now I will say I agree with them. I'm kind of, you know, exiting that beginner stage, and I guess a lot of people's opinions, since I'm not going to Japan to train or something, I'll just be a forever amateur, but kind of going from beginner to amateur here a little bit. These are apically dominant trees. Most of the trees we work with are. A lot of junipers are Cascades, and junipers are kind of basal dominant, meaning that they grow more out of the base and kind of get a creeping growth rather than wanting to grow straight up all the time. But anyhow, this was the first bit of growth out of it, was everything up top here. And then I started getting some growth down here finally, and it's starting to look a little more healthy. You can probably even see, just even as I've been talking, the leaves are kind of closing up once you take it out of the light. I will kind of mention this in here. There's been just some discussion in some forums about people watering these things 2, 3, 4 times a day. Now, I do live in Florida. It's nice and humid, and it hasn't been raining all that much. I water mine once a day, and the leaves open and close all day long. Sometimes 4 or 5 in the afternoon, it'll almost look dead. I've actually had some people painting my house, and they've been like, hey man, I think this tree over here is dead. And it's fine. It's just the leaves close up, the leaves open. I've had some people, you know, I've seen people claim that it's just the tree regulating its transpiration. I don't pretend to know why it's doing it. I just know it does it, and it doesn't seem to harm it at all. But now that it's kind of, you know, nursed back to health, just has a lot of growth that's just in some just really bad spots. I mean, here's one of the longer main cascading branches with a branch just coming right off the bottom of it. I don't want that thing on there. So I'm just going to give it another fairly light prune today. I'm going to go a little heavier up here. I really just keep a little stuff up here just in case I ever do just decide to cut it off and make it a standard tree again. There's a little bit of growth right there. There's even a little bit coming out right here. I'm going to leave that on there, like kind of, again, like I say, just as a just-in-case thing. Give you guys a look at the other side of it. And that's what it looks like from that angle there. So some of this is actually really good growth here. This one, but it's just getting kind of long, and it's all the way out at the end. I'd like to get a little more up in here like this. I really like that. I like to keep that. Just in my vision of what I would like my Cascade to look like. Here's that one branch I was talking about, or here's one of them that I was talking about that's just growing back into the tree here. And up here, I'm going to take this back a couple nodes. This is one of the branches that I may try to air layer off one day. It's not part of the Cascade. It's just an alternate apex, because for some reason this year I was trying to keep as an apex, and that kind of died back, and that energy I guess kind of went here. But this branch was kind of coming up, and I was just leaving it there, and then it got that wild sprout that way. I'm going to take that one off, and I'm going to take this whole entire one off here. It's just another little small sprout kind of going into the rest of the tree. This one, same thing, just kind of going in the wrong direction here. And I probably could have just cut that whole thing off, and I think I'm going to just right. This one probably going a little bit out of the picture there. Coming right from the base of this guy here. I don't want that. This one is just coming right on top. of this other branch. So I'm gonna take the whole branch off. This one I'll just shorten up by a couple nodes here. Actually, what I might do is just take this off altogether. This branch here is kind of in the right place. This one was a little bit more curled than I would have really wanted it anyway, kind of coming back up. So should create some taper. I left plenty of room for dieback if it needs to. There's one coming right off the bottom. I think that's about it for the Cascade there. Just slow that guy down a little bit. Definitely don't want to remove too much. I want to make sure that it keeps some momentum going that way. This piece appears to have some dieback. This one too, I was kind of hoping that one would resprout, and it hasn't yet. The main part of the apex there, just what used to be the apex rather. Just going to cut that back a little bit, see if that might come back to life one day. And then that too. I keep those. Not really part of the Cascade, but I don't want everything completely dead up here and just, you know, have the tree decide to sort of shut itself down. Trees don't really think, but just sometimes it just happens. Alright, and here is the next one. I usually just update these guys one or two at a time. I may end up doing all 5 today. And to just remind you guys that all of these are offspring from that Cascade. This one is actually, like, it was the biggest one I took right off the top of the Cascade. I tried to take it as an air layer. I think I was a little impatient with it. I took it off a little bit too early, but just for some reason I thought maybe it still had some hope, and I put it in topsoil, kind of like I was going to take it as a cutting. And sure enough, it took right off out of the topsoil. And then I'll show you at the end when I can give you guys a little bit of a closer look. So I can't even get the whole tree in the picture now. So it's got such tall shoots, they go right up out of the picture there and everything. But when I get it all pruned up, I'll give you guys a little closer look. There's a little dead piece here. That was the dieback from when it almost died as that cutting or air layer. So it was a pretty big cutting to begin with. And so the last 3-4 times I pruned it, I tried to just go exclusively with taking each branch that I want to prune. Well, I do want to show you guys this here real quick before I even get started. This is my current sacrifice branch. It is the lowest. It's coming out right above the topsoil or above the top of the substrate. Should be really, really good, in a good spot just to have a scar. Not that ever having a scar is a good thing, but it's just low enough to where I should be able to get it covered up pretty well. I had a bigger sacrifice right here, and I pruned that off the last time, and it's actually getting a little sprout just up under that. I'll try to give you guys a little bit of a closer look at that once I get everything pruned down. I'm going to leave this and this for now. I'm hoping that since it's just next to that other pruning mark, that I can let it go just enough to maybe heal that up, and then just have a smaller wound to heal. And it'll still give the trunk some more thickness there and everything, so we'll see how that goes. But I have been just pruning it where, like right here, you can see I cut it the last time, and then I've been going like a couple nodes up from there. Right here, you can see where I pruned it from the last time, and then just trying to go a couple nodes up from there. Here, just actually did die back a little bit rather than coming out right there. It's got 2 sprouts. Some of these, like these 2 sprouts, are actually pretty good. Some of these did get 2 sprouts coming up off there. This one might have been the one I was looking at earlier. They're almost coming out like parallel with each other. So after I do my initial prune, I may take a little bit of a closer look at them, but might as well do the initial prune first and then get a look at it and see, you know, what kind of just feel I get for it after I do that. I would point out that these leaves were pretty much already closed when I brought it in. They may even start opening up a little bit, but it's like 10:30 in the morning, I think, here, something like that. These things every morning just look incredibly beautiful. If you get out there right at sunrise, they just look like the coolest tree in the world. And then the rest of the day, they just open and close, open and close. I notice the hotter it is, the more they stay closed. Let me go ahead and just kind of go through with my original thought of, I mean, you know, this one here, I got the prune mark there. So come up a couple nodes from there. And since I'm going to update all 5, I'll go ahead. Usually when I do a Raintree video, I kind of show these are just easy, very easy to do some directional pruning with. This node has a leaf coming off that way. This node has a leaf coming off that way. If you'd like to get the tree to grow some that way, you would potentially cut it off there. I usually don't try not to cut off too much green growth. I usually do it when it's lignified, when it's woody. But you would cut it off there. And then the theory is that the next branch would come out of that leaf there. If you wanted it to grow that way, you'd cut it here, and the next branch would come out of there. And so I also do that. So I figure from each chop mark, I'll go up a node or 2, just kind of depending on which direction I'd like it to go. A couple of these ones that have the 2 sprouts and what I'm viewing as being parallel, I may go ahead and kind of notch on out as I go around doing this part. This is actually the main spot here where I was noticing the parallel branches coming out. And it's also getting a little bit further this way than almost anything else in the tree. And so I think I'm actually just going to take that whole piece out and then go ahead and take this one up just a couple nodes from. I would have liked to have taken the thicker part off and left that thinner part for taper, but again, that was coming way out of the profile of the tree. I don't want it to get, I mean, I would obviously like to get more ramified and wider, but not that much that quick, especially there is a little gap in there, so. One of the things that seems obvious to me, but maybe some people don't get, when I do these kind of things and go in and maybe think about taking it a little bit further, remember, you know, if you're thinking, should I cut this here or here, you would obviously cut it here first, take a look at it, because if you decide you should have gone down here, you still can. If you go down here first, obviously you can't put the branch back. I do see a lot of people ask some really, really silly questions sometimes in some of the forums, and sometimes I think, well, that seems obvious without even answering, but maybe not. Take a really close look at it here. Alright, so I took another look at it. There are a couple things that are bothering me. One of them I'm going to leave alone for now. The other one I think I'm going to try to address. Kind of seems like it's getting maybe a little tall in a couple of these spots here where maybe I should go below the last node I cut, but then I notice that I'm losing a lot of ramification, and just depending on how it backbuds and dies back, the tree may kind of do that on its own. So I think I'm going to leave that part alone. And then the other part that's just kind of bothering me a little bit, and it could actually be that the sacrifice branch is also throwing me off some. I did pause the video there for a second, tried to just kind of envision it without it. But I feel like this right here is the lowest branch, and it's coming way too far out of the profile of the tree. Now, there's a smaller branch coming off this larger branch here, going that way, and then this one has some movement, and then it not only moves fairly quickly off of the branch there, but then kind of goes straight up. And it's a little bit of a big step, but something I think that if I find it's a mistake, I can correct if I need to. I'm going to cut to that point of movement there. And then same here is I'm going to go down to where that other branch is coming out. Being careful to leave the live node. And I think that kind of brings it down to scale a little bit better too. See this branch, the one that's really long now, is coming out next to a scar that was already there. So even as I allow that to grow, that'll heal that scar. And then right there is where I cut the last sacrifice. And this one, you know, this little sprout that I got is coming out just below it. And so that should help to just heal everything all together there. And then this right here, and it's where I have the tree tied down to too. That's that dead wood. At one point I was trying to keep it, and I had asked my viewers to kind of leave in the comments whether I should keep it or not. It was, you know, probably about 3 or 4 times that size, and they said it would probably be better to lose it. I cut it there with the idea of eventually the tree will just reject all of that. It'll get enough growth where that'll just fall off, and that's another reason why I used it for a tie-in too. Alright, and then there's this one. I really do like the way it's turning out. It's too bad that I can't get them all filmed exactly at 7:30 in the morning where I have nice pretty open leaves, but I promise this thing does look really nice first thing in the morning. So when I first started it, I had 2 cuttings basically kind of come to life at the same time. The other one I'll bring in next. This one I decided to try to keep 2 lower branches as sacrifices, and then I was just going to try to think it up the stump with the idea of taking them off. The other one I just kind of let go. I kept letting it get like as tall as I possibly could before it kept blowing over, and then I cut it all the way back, and then just kind of repeat. This one, the more I looked at it, the more I realized if I cut the sacrifice branches, I just kind of I would look a lot like the other one. I'd have 2 scars here to heal, and so I decided to kind of do like a left branch, right branch, and then just kind of try to build an apex from there. When I originally got the Raintrees, I intended on just doing nothing but clip and grow because it can be a pain to get around the thorns when you wire it. But I do find, you know, that it grows such long shoots and they're so flexible, it is easy enough. You just got to be careful to get around the thorns. Some people cut them off. It does not harm the tree at all, but I think it's part of the look of the tree, so I leave it on there. There is some wire. Right now I just have wire on these 2 right here. They're wired together. I'm not going to take that off today because actually when I give you a close-up the end, you might be able to see it's the wire that was cutting in here a little bit. And so I took it off from over here. I had this branch and this branch wired, and you can see I got this one low enough now and everything. That was actually the point I was trying to do. This one was way up. And so I had the wire over here, and then I just switched it over here. So I'm going to leave that on there. It's not really biting in yet. But all growth is good growth, but at the same time, everything off this branch has got a lot of it, and it's all just coming straight up. Don't have so much coming in on this side for some reason. I do rotate my trees regularly, so I'm not really sure why it's all coming off of one side like that. But while I've got it over here, I'm going to go ahead and start. There's some of this growth that actually is coming straight off the bottom. This one's coming straight off the bottom. I'm going to take some of that. And then all this straight up growth, I'm just going to really cut it back down. Basically to the tree. But most of this stuff I'm just going to cut it right back down to the original branches I had wired, just in the hopes that it picks some of the nodes that are maybe coming out to the sides instead of straight up like that. My goodness, why does this thing keep spinning on its own here? But even though I'm taking most of these all the way out, they definitely, you know, have been serving their purpose and thickening the branches up. This one's not only coming straight up, but also growing back towards the tree. This one's kind of interesting. Wasn't really planning on wiring anything today. It's a very weak shoot coming off of there. Definitely might be about the only one that I don't cut all the way back down to the original branch. Just in the hopes I would like to kind of leave that in there. I did want to go, you know, big branch, and then just the crown, but wouldn't mind having that in there just to kind of balance it out a little. This one, you know, seemingly kind of small. for now, and obviously that's all a shoot that has come out for now, is not, because it's one of the only ones that was not sprouting straight up, and I could, it's a little small for wire now, but I could eventually get it wired down a little bit better. So even there, just holding it there for a second keeps them from kind of going straight back up. But I do want to prune the entire thing, so I'm just going to take it down a little. And hopefully when that kind of grows out some more, I can pick one of them and keep it flexible enough to get that wired down a little more. And let's see. Before I do the apex, I'd like to finish up this. This is one with wire. And actually even see it's getting another little bud there. I'm going back to where the wire ends. This has a branch coming out of the bottom. I don't like that. Not being quite as aggressive on this side because it doesn't have nearly the amount of growth that the other side does. I'll take that whole one off there a little more. Then suddenly I cut off more there, but that was growing out of the profile of the tree. I guess I could have left it on there before I changed it. It was coming out this way, so I just kind of took that off. Leave the trunk a little more open, just depending on which side I choose to be the front one day. And actually, when I say I'm not sure why this one had more growth, at one point this one was a little thicker, this one was lower, so I did want to let it get extra growth on it to make sure it got thicker than that one, in the theory of the lowest branch should be the thickest one. They're looking about the same now. Just really going to pick a spot. Kind of surprised this one hasn't really been growing a little more out of the apex. We'll see what happens after this pruning. This one's sprouted down low here. It's coming out from under the crown and then coming up higher than the crown. And I'm going to go ahead and just take that whole thing off too. It does have some new growth just getting started right there. I hate to take that off right now. I do like to wait till they are lignified. Alright, and then there's this one. This one was a cutting I took just the same time as that last one that was in here. When I originally got Raintree, I kept hearing everybody say that they make flat tops out of them, and so that was my intention. I've talked about it before, that one that's a Cascade is the mother tree. I was going to grow that one, I was going to grow the Cascade piece out, actually as a sacrifice branch, and then I was going to make the rest of it a flat top, but then I found that I thought the Cascade was much more interesting than the rest of the tree, and that's why I did what I did. This one's a little bit of a hot mess right now at the moment. I put some wire on it on my last update in the video, and I've actually readjusted and even changed the wire a few times. Got some really wild growth. Alright, so the wire's off there. And with these sad leaves inside, it's kind of hard to show you, but this thing really does have a ton of energy. It's got a couple of these longer shoots, have new branches coming out at every node, even right now. And the way that this thing is kind of leaning in the pot like that almost makes me want to go ahead and just prune off the longer shoots, or even some of the unwanted shoots, and go ahead and put it in a big bulb pan and just let it grow like that for a while. But I look back through, and it's been less than a year actually since the last time it was repotted. So I'm going to take it down to that first one. Already got a little bud starting out there. I hope I didn't, if I pruned it when I readjusted the wire, I hope I didn't kind of ruin the balance of it too much, so I do want to keep it in balance as I work on it. This one, even though it's got a little movement, it's growing right out on top of a branch I definitely want to keep, and so I just want to take that one out. It's even got some new growth coming back on top of that one that way. All this might be a little easier to see for you guys if I take off. This is one of the ones I was talking about. I hate to lose all that extra movement I got in it. I do have a ton of movement in that one. You see that's coming out there and kind of has that going on with it. But, and then maybe out here just at the end. prune it hard, but be able to keep the movement too. This one, I'm just going to cut back a couple nodes for now. When I look at it when I'm done, I may actually eliminate it. Just kind of depends on how I feel when I'm done. That brings me around about this group here. And again, this is pretty sure I did have to cut it when I readjusted the wire. So I just want to make sure I prune it again to try to keep it, again, like I said, in balance with the rest of it. These, very long. I hate to lose that extra movement there, but oh, it feels like I should even take this one back further, but that even has a ton of ramification already on it. I don't want to lose all that. That one's kind of coming straight up there. These two are competing a little. This one hardly has any movement, so I'm going to take it all the way back to a node, perhaps where I can get it to come out that way. Sometimes you got to lose a little ramification to gain a little ramification. I think I'm going to have to do that here too. That's just way out of balance there. And that. And let me take a good look. Alright, I took a closer look and zoomed you guys in a little too. You know, some of the advice you see, and I actually do think it's correct advice, but is prune back until you either lose taper or movement, which I think is great advice to do with a lot of stuff. And right now I'm getting ready to cut off some movement. I feel like it's out of place for my future hopes of the tree, and that is, I mean, this branch here just has a ton of movement I got in there with it, but it just seems to be not part of my future vision of what it should look like when it's quote unquote finished. These two branches actually don't have that much movement in them. They had some healthy buds coming off of them. That was the only reason I was kind of saving them like they were. See, I gotta take a really close look at it here. If I go too far, my Edward scissor hands will just go right to work and get crazy with it. Alright, before I go too crazy with it, I think I will just leave it just like that. Don't want this side to get too much taller than this side, but at the same time, it's got a lot of growing to do. I think it'll come of its own. Some of this stuff down here, this little growth here, probably won't be part of the future design, but I think I might leave a few of these just in case I do decide to do something and just start again, and that would create a lot of taper for me. Of course, give me a lot more to grow out. Alright, it is now right around noon, and it's kind of hard to believe that this one has open leaves on it, that they're not closing up right now. One of my theories on there, when I say it's hard to believe, one of my theories on that is that I just pruned this one. I say maybe, just pruned it, maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that. I actually did it when my painters started working on the house. I didn't feel like moving the tree, and so I just pruned it so that he wouldn't knock it over. But anyhow, this there is some wire on it. It's cutting in. I'm going to take it off, but the first thing I'm going to do is I just did notice that this branch just got really out of place on me. And take that off. I didn't show you guys on the one tree that I have with the sacrifice branches. I guess it would have been the second tree I addressed today. This was actually a stump that I pulled off of it. When I repotted it, it was just an extra little growth that came out of the bottom of that thing, and I was able to use a root splitter and break it off there. So that's where this came from. Probably just about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, something like that. Had to have been last summer at some point. Get this wire off here. It is just one wire. You'll be able to see it's cutting in quite a bit But it's a Raintree and it's extremely young. Got a lot more growth coming. Won't be too long, you won't be able to see any of that. And all my other ones, you know, even that second one, the failed air layer, really just trying to manage that as, you know, as I was happy that that thing just came back to life. This is going to be the only one, or the first one, that I'm really just going to try a left branch, right branch. I want to put a whole lot of wire on it. At the same time, so far, clip and grow, I mean, like this branch is kind of in the right place, but it's coming up so quickly like that. I don't know. So, I mean, I did have that wire on the lower two, but then that was the plan, is not to really make these like they were originally sacrificed or anything. It's just, you know, 2 branches to start with and just try to build my tree from there. Got plenty of time left. And then I did want to, let's see the best part to show you. Since I did clip those off when the painters were working, this thing is already back budding a little bit. I tried to get a good shot on that other one. I really couldn't. Let's see, this might be your best chance here. And there's some little new bud coming out there, right at that node. And then right back behind it, there's new growth right there too.